All right, everybody, so put on your headphones. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, welcome. This session is StriveTogether, using data to build communities for social impact. Hello everyone, my name is Matt Snyder. I'm the data director at Higher Expectations for Racine County in Racine, Wisconsin.
And good afternoon, my name is Debbie Lieberman, and I am a program evaluator with the AVID Center, which is a program designed to close equity and achievement gaps in schools across the country. Today I'll also be sharing some of my work with the United Way of San Diego County, where we were working in partnership with schools and districts and the city. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to share a little bit about our organizations, the mission behind our work, and the network that connected Matt and I a few years ago, the StriveTogether network. We'll also be sharing how a network of data fellows came together to change how we see data in our communities, and how that data work in turn created new communities back in our hometowns. We'll close with some reflections and takeaways that hopefully you can use in your work back home.
So Debbie and I represent StriveTogether, and we're a national movement to improve outcomes for every child from cradle to career. This network is made up of nearly 70 local communities that are all united by the same belief. We refuse to settle for a world where a child's potential is dictated by the conditions into which they were born. So to address that issue, to make sure that that is not possible, right? We work together with local partners to break down barriers, to invest in what works best, and to change systems to reach as many families as possible. And at the bedrock and at the heart of that work is using data and evidence to show our community's most pressing challenges and to bring partners together to take action as a result of that. In particular, we help our communities measure and improve 7 outcomes from cradle to career. These outcomes form a roadmap for a child and a family's journey to success and education in the workforce. And at every step along the way, in each and every one of these outcomes, we take a hard look at how the data varies based on race and ethnicity, income, and gender. And we build partnerships to change the systems that produce inequitable results.
This map represents the 66 partnerships across the country that are a part of the StriveTogether network. Each of these orange dots represents thousands of students and often hundreds of partners, nonprofits, school districts, teachers, parents that work together in collaboration to meet these goals. You can see Racine, Matt's hometown, represented with the arrow here in Higher Expectations, and my hometown, San Diego, with the Partnership for Children. These 66 partnerships touch over 300 school districts and 13 million students. In 2016, StriveTogether created a partnership with the Tableau Foundation, launching the StriveTogether Data Fellowship, which we were fortunate enough to participate in. Matt participated in the first cohort in 2016, and I joined in 2017. This was a career-changing opportunity for us. Many of us came to this fellowship as relative data novices and left with an entirely new skill set to bring back to our communities. We received Tableau licenses, server access, attendance at TC, and we formed a new community of learning, connecting these data managers from partnerships all around the country to share feedback, problem solve together, and tackle some of the really difficult challenges that we face in education in our hometowns.
Yeah, that fellowship was really transformational for us, because what we ended up doing is we created a national community to support ourselves in learning Tableau. But the beauty of that work is that we then in turn use Tableau back at home to build local communities of educators, government agencies, nonprofits, philanthropy, and more, all focused on using data for social change. And I'll tell you what, that work is extremely hard, and we need support. Right? It's hard to talk about how the data is persistently showing that we're failing our Black and African American students. It's hard to support a community and undoing generations of systemic racism that have prevented families of color from having the equitable opportunities that they deserve. It's really hard to go from writing a calculated field to working in the field to advocate for equitable school funding. Just like it's tough to go from tweaking a tooltip to giving schools data tools that tip the balances in favor of suspending fewer kids. Right? In our work, we need so much more than just the technical skills of Tableau. We need human skills in order to really figure out how do we change adult mindsets that doubt whether all students can truly learn and succeed. Right? In our work, every data point is a heartbeat of a student, a family, a community member, and it's really hard and hard work in order to change systems to better support those individuals. Right? So for all of these reasons, our work as data professionals in the social sector is really challenging, and we need support. At StriveTogether, our national network formed that lifeline of support to encourage us in the hard work to change ourselves and to change our communities.
Yeah, that's right. We're not just cranking out vizzes all day, we are also confronting challenging issues in our community. And we like to think about our work in two kind of categories. They're the technical problems, which have a singular solution, getting access to the right data, blending that data, creating the right joins, that technical work. But then there's the adaptive work, the stuff that doesn't have a single solution. And that's really the human work. How do we manage around these problematic policies and practices? How do we introduce new ways of looking at our students and our school systems? How do we challenge and confront those biases? That's that adaptive work. And so we really need support in both of those, and equal strategy in both of those areas to make the kind of change that we're looking to make. So let's share some examples of how we toggle kind of both of those pieces in the local settings where we're building community, regionally and nationally as well. So I'll share an example from the San Diego community where I work and some of the school partners that we've entered into partnership around data with. When we entered into this conversation with this school district, they were interested in tackling school attendance. Now, attendance might not seem like a really hard-hitting issue, but in fact, if kids aren't in school, they aren't learning, and that puts them off track to meet those important educational milestones. And we know that attendance is actually an equity issue. We know that students of color, students from low-income families, and students with disabilities are disproportionately more likely to experience chronic absenteeism, defined as missing 10% of school or more. So coming into partnership with these schools, we were really interested in how we build a data system to tackle this challenge, to give students the opportunity to succeed. When we entered into this partnership, we found there were two problems. One was one of those human challenges. There was nobody designated at these schools to really look at and track and monitor attendance. So our first solution was to create an attendance team, a network of folks who interact with students and parents, made up of teachers, principals, school counselors, nurses, anyone who wanted to be part of this attendance journey. And that group committed to meeting bi-weekly and looking at data so that they could track and leverage that data towards solutions. The second problem we found was a technical one. We had disparate data across multiple systems, and the minute these reports were generated, they were pretty much out of date, as you can imagine. So we came up with a technical solution for this. A series of dashboards that allowed our school partners to get a holistic picture of attendance in real time. The first view allowed them to get kind of a bird's eye view of their school. Which students were experiencing higher rates of chronic absenteeism? Let's look at that by gender, race, grade, even down to the classroom level. And in this particular school, we found that there were much higher rates of chronic absenteeism in those early grades, allowing them to create some targeted strategies for those families. The second new feature that we were able to provide for them is really connecting that attendance challenge to the why. So why are these students missing school? Because the why is going to dictate what strategy we deploy to help support them, right? So we were able to marry together data around the chronic absentee rates and the coding associated with those absences, allowing this attendance team to now wrap around those students and divide and conquer. So those students that were missing school due to illness were kind of triaged to the nurse, and those that were tardy were able to be addressed through the front office staff. So we were able to really split up this work in a strategic manner. And then lastly, we created a system for this team to track their interventions. So instead of duplicating work or missing the opportunity to intervene, they're now coordinating, tracking, and monitoring which of those interventions are yielding the greatest gains, creating a smarter, not harder system at their school. We're really excited about this work, and as it grows, we're looking ahead at the future, growing to more schools, and in fact, our County Office of Education has expressed an interest in taking this district and county-wide so that multiple districts can borrow from this model. The other piece that came out of this was a new community of learning around this data. We now had schools networking together, coming together monthly to problem solve, share solutions, share data, and think differently together about this work. And there are some great results to be proud of here. We saw at one of our pilot schools a list of 30 chronic absentee students came down to 10 by the end of the year, resulting in thousands of dollars returned to those schools. So this is an example of how data is being leveraged at the local level and helping us develop a new conversation and a new community. So let's look at a regional example.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Debbie, for sharing that. Right? And back in my neck of the woods, right, we developed a regional community in the southeastern Wisconsin area of local higher ed colleges and universities and 3 StriveTogether partnerships, all towards a big goal related to college completion. Let me talk to you a little bit about the problem that we are encountering, how we use Tableau to address that issue, and where we're going next in that work. So in the southeastern Wisconsin area, which is similar to a national trend, our colleges and universities are facing some common challenges. There's declining enrollment across the board. There's major gaps in completion rates for students of color. And colleges and universities are facing increasing pressure to prepare students for a future workforce in a constantly evolving economy while still meeting the needs of regional employers and industries. And the thing that everyone is realizing, though, is that we share these common challenges, but no one organization can solve these alone by themselves. Right? We need to come together in a different way to approach this at a regional level. Right? And that's what we've begun to do. 18 colleges and universities, both public and private, 2- and 4-year, have formed an unprecedented regional alliance to tackle these issues together. Right? And one of the main goals of that alliance is to focus on how can we dramatically increase on-time completion rates for our students, while removing barriers for students of color and non-traditional learners that are most burdened by post-secondary systems that, quite frankly, were not designed for them. Right? So, in order to do that work, institutions are taking a deep look at their internal policies and practices and adapting some high-impact strategies from the National Complete College America network. Right? And along the way, they're tracking dozens of interim metrics to know whether we're truly on track for on-time completion rates and increasing those rates over time in our institutions. That's where Tableau has come into play. Right? Higher Expectations partnered with Building Our Future in Kenosha County, which is our neighbors to our south, and Milwaukee Succeeds, our neighbors to our north. Right? And we collaborated in a new way to visualize these metrics that these 18 colleges and universities were sharing, so that each institution had a picture of what their on-track metrics looked like, and at the same time, we could develop a regional picture for the first time in our region of what does college completion rates look like for our entire area. Right? What you see on your screen here is just one example of one of those dashboards. This is a look for one sample institution and the percentage of students at that school who are completing gateway math and English courses. These are the classes that are critical to progressing in your major and are often early predictors of whether you're going to be on time with graduation, right? So super important early indicator to be looking at, right? We're helping institutions disaggregate that data by race and ethnicity, by income, by gender. And we're allowing them to compare themselves to peer institutions for the first time ever, and to our regional picture as well. So we're excited about this work, but it's really just begun. We just started to share this visualization and others over the last few months, right? So this is definitely a work in progress, and we have a long ways to go in this work, right? But none of this would have been possible without the support of the Tableau Foundation and the fellowship, right? Our 3 local StriveTogether partnerships shared licenses and server access. We trained new colleagues along the way about how to use Tableau. And we collaborated very deeply to develop dashboards like this and the regional picture I mentioned. Right? So now the work has just begun, and we're flipping to how can we really play a strategic role in supporting institutions and using this data to improve their own internal plans for how they're going to change structures to better support students of color. And at the same time, how can we use that regional picture of completion that we just shared online for the first time in the last few months to increase public awareness and public accountability for this work? Right? So we're excited by that. And all of this work is driven by one big region-wide goal, inspired by the Lumina Foundation, that 60% of adults in our region will have some type of post-secondary credential by 2027. Meanwhile, switching gears, in another part of the country, we have another great example of a regional partnership fueled by Tableau that comes from Dallas, Texas. The Commit partnership in Dallas is using data in an innovative way to bring legislators together for a common cause. Right? In particular, they mapped Texas state public education data to legislative district and started to share that with elected officials. This allowed Commit for the first time ever to be able to tell local elected officials what were the 3rd grade literacy rates for your constituents, for your districts. That had never been done before, right? They used Tableau and Alteryx to create this innovative way of looking at the data, right? And this brought light to the fact that 60% of our Texas public education kids are not reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. That's a huge deal because students are 4 times more likely to drop out of school if they're not reading on grade level at that 3rd grade year. It's critical. Right? So Commit used this data very intentionally to bring urgency to this issue, to lay out the need for reform, and to bring the evidence for data-driven solutions that would address that gap. Right? And the ultimate result for that is pretty astounding. Right? Through their intentional efforts, Commit got representatives and senators to come across party lines. And yes, I did just say that. Bipartisanship is still possible in this day and age. It's a real thing. They did it in Texas. They came across party lines to pass an historic, comprehensive education reform funding package to the tune of $11.5 billion. That's an amazing impact. Marie Apple, who is the data lead for this project at the Commit Partnership, is here in the crowd today. Marie, please stand up to be recognized for this awesome achievement. That's really amazing. Marie, you're awesome. Commit Partnership is a bunch of rock stars. You guys are awesome.
Speaking of rock stars, this map made by yet another data fellow rock star, Cassandra Silva over here in the back, represents this network of data fellows that was leveraged through this partnership. And this map allows us to see a couple of things: how we're deploying Tableau across the country, the licenses, the servers, the training vouchers that we have spread through our communities, and also how we're using Tableau. We're using Tableau to have conversations about equity in the community. We're using Tableau to set goals as a community so that we can align our work and move towards those common ends. We're using Tableau to galvanize and create new support and new urgency around these critical issues. This map is the data fellowship, and that network continues to give back to us in a number of ways. We have yielded all kinds of new connections and new thought partnership through this network, and for my example, many of my colleagues heard about that attendance work that I shared a few moments ago as it was in development. And Lorna Dilley from Milwaukee Succeeds gave me a call about a year ago, and we got to talking and sharing some resources, and now they're doing some similar attendance work in Milwaukee. So we can see those ideas being catalyzed across the country where we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from each other.
Yeah, in my line of work, I'll just share a quick example. Is I learned deeply from the Strive partnership in Cincinnati as part of the fellowship. They had an innovative way of bringing data talent into their community and sharing it with local partners. That it really inspired me, and I adapted that strategy to create a new data fellowship back in Racine in partnership with Education Pioneers, which is a national data talent development firm. Okay. That fellowship enabled higher expectations to split and share a data role that I co-managed in this last year with our local school district, who we've deeply partnered to build data capacity for a while now. And that data fellow really advanced the collective work of both Higher Expectations as a backbone agency and our school district. None of that would have been possible without the national network of this fellowship. Right? I never would have thought of this idea if I had not met my counterpart in Cincinnati, and we had that time to really get to know each other. Right? That was transformational for us as Higher Expectations. Right? And really, the biggest reflection I have from all of that is that we brought people together to learn a piece of technology. But in turn, we ended up learning so much more than that.
Absolutely, and along those lines, we want to pay respect and thank the folks that brought us together around this work, the StriveTogether network, the Tableau Foundation, absolutely, and Tableau, and all of our partners back home and here who have created this new energy, this new learning environment for us. We have a few takeaways for you to consider as you go about your TC journey this week. And the first is to really think about what community you have to support and nurture your growth, to challenge you, to give you feedback, to problem solve with. We all know what it's like to be that kind of lone data person out in the field. So it takes a little bit of ingenuity to create that network sometimes. Whether that means creating new connections here at TC, joining your local Tableau user group, or perhaps within your own organization, building the capacity of your peers and creating that learning network within your own team.
Yeah, in closing, the second big invitation that I would give to everyone is really to think about how are you using data to advance the public good? How can you use data and your skills to support the well-being of children and families back in your hometown where you live? Are you doing that already? If not, what could you be doing? There's so many ways to get involved, right? Debbie and I have there's so many that live and breathe in this room right now, I just know that, right? We need to come together to brainstorm together how we need to partner together in a different way to really bring those skills to light, right? We need data skills desperately in the social sector, and that can come from all walks of life, right? So if you're not engaged right now, our real call to action is please do engage, right? And Debbie and I are going to stick around after this session for anyone who wants to talk about that. We'd love to be a thought partner with you of what you could do in your hometown. We'd love to be inspired by your stories of what you're already doing, right? We'd love to talk more after this session. And at the end, we're also going to invite up all of our StriveTogether Tableau fellows and anyone who's affiliated with the StriveTogether network to the front to be recognized, and they'll join in that conversation as well for anyone who's interested. So with that, we're done for today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to our story.